Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you guys are in the world. You are most welcome and brutally honest with VRA. And today I've got somebody who I respect a lot. I love a lot. I'm very fond of this person. And DV Sridharan. He's 80 years young, mind-blowingly awesome, wonderful person. When you will meet him and spend some time with him, the only thing you will come back whenever you meet somebody or experience something, we try to define it in many ways, but at the core there is just one thing which drives every other quality or traits of a person. So when you will meet Mr. DV, I'm going to call him DV throughout this show. So the only thing you'll come back with is goodness. I think it's the goodness and life around him. See, first he has life. Second, that life is wonderful. So therefore, when you are with him, the only thing you catch, the energy, the vibes, the ideas are all full of goodness. And no wonder that he wrote this book called. Where is your book, DV?
Yep, there it is.
Hold it. Yeah. Let me see your
Yep.
face. No, no, this side. On the
Uh,
other side. Take it on the other side. On the other side. Other side.
all right. All right.
Yeah.
Yep,
Now
I
you
got
got
it
it.
right.
Yeah, yeah, got it right. So, friends,
Yep.
this is the book. It's called Good News India. Ordinary Indians in extraordinary situations and with extraordinary triumphs. And I finished this book, final last two, three chapters last night. Thank you, DV. Yeah, you can take the
Thank
book
you.
down now. And the whole thought, I think, started because somewhere DV realized when he was around 60 years old, I think 60, right?
Almost close to 60. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, he realized that why there is so much of bad news everywhere, why we get to see and hear only bad things, why not start good things? So he started a website called goodnewsindia.in
Dot
and
com.
for dot com, sorry. So for
Yeah.
almost 5 or 6 years, he ran it non-stop, featuring these people, ordinary people in extraordinary situations and how humans excel when they are challenged. That's the biggest inspiration. And especially people who have scarcity. When you have abundance, it's another thing. When you have scarcity, challenges become more sharp. But after reading this book, I realized that abundance and scarcity is not because of money and things and possessions. There are two kinds of people in this world: people who have uh, abundance mindset and people who have scarcity mindset. A scarcity mindset people always believe that it's not possible. They believe that there are no solution to these problems. And people with abundance mindset uh, actually believe that yes, every situation can be solved. And they go ahead and solve it without depending on anyone. Second, my takeaway from this wonderful book is every household must have this book, you know. Every household must have this book. The second, and it's for your children, is amazing. And the second takeaway from this book is that people who actually want to do something don't depend on anyone. They just go ahead and do it themselves. And it's another thing, they collaborate with other people or other people collaborate, but they don't care about the validation from the world whether their idea is good or not, whether idea has the potential to be executed or not, whether it's the postman story you have written or about the Jaipur Fort amazing story, or Komal Kothari's or Rajendra Singh's, and beautiful title that Rajendra Singh discovered how to wake up a river. And the folk heroes you have covered people with language Sanskrit, you have covered, and people who have planted trees. So almost all walks of life you have got best of your articles over here. So this is what I understood, and this is very, very inspiring. And the third thing, which is my favorite subject, DB, I've been researching on something since after my second phase of my life. I've been researching for quite a long time about creativity. It started professionally. I was supposed to do some research on creative thinking, then I was supposed to make presentations on creative thinking, and that's how this whole thing started. And I said, why is it that some people are called creative and others are not called creative? I go to an engineering college and I ask 1100 students in IIT that how many of you are here creative people? So just few girls raise their hands, or one or two boys raise their hands and rest of them don't. I say, why you guys, what are you guys doing? They say, we are engineers. So I said, what do you mean engineers are not creative? You make bridges, you write codes, you're not creative. Problem is somewhere we have started believing that art is creative. Singing, painting, writing, these are creative fields, rest is not. What we forget is that the highest form of a human mind's evolution is the final stage is creative consciousness. Because that's where the creator is, that's where the creator's creativity is, and what we are also gifted with. So we are gifted with two things. One is breathing, and second thing is our ability to create, our ability to imagine. So all these stories which you have written in this amazing book, all these people found an idea and then they went ahead alone implementing that idea, and how they succeeded. And this is what I call creativity. Where every morning I write about creative consciousness. A lot of people think that I write about painting and music. This is what I talk about. So creative people can really change the world, and creativity is where the goodness lies. But so many people are doing such amazing work, but why is it today you are an 80-year-old man with so much of experience and wisdom and real interaction with life? Why do you think that everybody is so interested in producing and distributing bad news? And not only that, why is it that billions of people in the world are also so eager and keen and excited and enthusiastic about consuming bad news? What is your understanding of that?
Yeah, thank you, Vivek. Thank you for having me over. I have a slight stage fright sharing the screen with you. You have spent so much time reading the book and sharing this time with me. Thank you very much. And I don't think that you can ever match my admiration for you. I've known you for some years. I've been through your books and I interacted with you. So let's have it in proportion. You rank first, and I come next to you. Having said that, thank you for the warm words about the book. And most of the articles were written, as you said, some almost 20 years ago, starting that time. And thanks to our irrepressible common friend, young, energetic Dimple, who thought that this books would make a good anthology. And she thought of the book that it should be put. And I said, oh, who would want to read my old writing? And she said, well, the young people should be reading it. And that's how the book found a place. And I'm so glad I wrote it. I do hear from a lot of young people and some school principals saying that it is a wonderful book for young people to read. I think it's about people who do things that they don't have to do it. That is a very significant statement I'm making. Most of us need not do anything. Many of us have enough money to have a car and a nice house and travel overseas. We can spend the time. We don't have to do anything. And even if we didn't have the money, people can just sit in there. Oh, what can I do? The problem is so big. But there are people who get up and do the things that they need not do. And I did not know them at all. I was not. This book is a matter of self discovery for me. I mean, the heroes that I met. Actually, in my website, there are over 100 such heroes. I picked only about 25 for this book. And in fact, it was a self discovery journey for me because I had been estranged from our own culture. I had been alienated, and I went to the Merchant Navy and I traveled the world and I saw most of the world before I saw India. And along the world, well, I should say this about, I hope not too many of my generations talk about or watching this. And I'll speak for my generation, at least for myself. My generation has a lot to be apologetic about and to apologize for because we are my generation and the next. I think we took the best of Indians away from a love of the land and love of the people. And I was one of them, and I plead guilty. And I must make amends for it. So when I came back to India and settled down after many years of travel, I found that the distance between me and the people who I call my brethren, I never stopped loving India, but I was exasperated by it. How can we have such terrible things happening to us? Poverty, hunger, and lack of jobs. All these were real in my time. They were bad things. So when I was undergoing that depression, and I read that Naipaul at that age, at that time of his life, where he was fully negative about India, it depressed me a lot. And then I asked myself, it can't be that bad. I see so many smiling faces. There are so many positive people. In spite of the little that they have, they keep marching for India. And they're not trying to go away to Australia and America, which I could have gone, and many of can and do. But they stay invested in this country and cheerfully, not negatively. The family, the land, the village, the community, the festivals, and the dharma, as they know. Believe it or not, the uneducated, so-called uneducated, unlettered Indians, I would say, are far more educated than the Indians. They have internalized what dharma is, doing the right thing. In Hindi, I say, a reet hai. They say, I don't know much Hindi, but this one phrase that stuck in my head.
Perfect. It's
So
perfect.
they say, a reet hai, nahi to a reet nahi hai. And for me, that sums up the Indianness. They know it. They don't have to read the Mahabharata and the Ramayana. They hear the Kathas, of course. So I started seeing people around me had the supreme confidence about this land, where all around me, people are trying to settle abroad and wanted to get a high-paid jobs and live in a layer that's well above the middle of India, let alone the lower India. So I wanted to go and meet these people, and that's how my journey began. And this has been a most rewarding journey for me. Along the way, I discovered why is it that these people are not visible? And that's when I discovered the industry of bad news, which, let me hasten to add, I want to quickly add, it is nowhere as bad as it is today. And yet it exasperated me 30 years ago, 30, 40 years ago. I'll come to it. I don't want to, I want to leave the stage to you. I don't want to be answering the wrong things that you asked me. But this is the background of my book and the state of my times 40 years ago. How India was is vastly different. I want to tell you that I lived through every prime minister of this country. I was born 5 years before independence. So I
Okay.
know a lived experience. I'm not a historian. I have a lived experience. There you are.
Oh, wonderful. So, you're right. See, I remember categorically 80s, when I was studying, and we used to read newspapers and used to argue. We were part of politics. And at that time also, we believed that media is actually a bit negative. They
Yeah.
always are focusing on fault lines. Yes, there are fault lines, but then people who are correcting those fault lines, you have to discuss that also. If
Yeah.
people get COVID and there is a crowd outside the hospital, yes, you talk about it, but then how quickly doctors worked efficiently and got those patients treated, that should also be talked about.
Yeah.
So that's a human faith and balance that yes, this universe is a self-correcting system, and if there is problems, then there are solutions also. That kind of faith humanity has to have in the society, otherwise society has no meaning. So
Yeah.
at that time, remember 80s, we used to discuss and argue and debate, and I was a very fierce debater at that time, and I was very strong Naxal, and we used to believe that everything is wrong with this country. You have filth everywhere, there is noise, there is no order, chaos, poverty, unemployment, like you said, everything bad in the world is in this. And the general feeling amongst the students was, यार यहाँ कुछ नहीं होगा, यहाँ से निकलो. So everybody thought, चलो बाहर निकल गए तो निकल गए, otherwise कुछ नहीं है. तो nobody cared about the country. I never saw anybody who had an ambition to become the prime minister of the country, or or to become a minister, or to do anything like that. So people had lost hope in the country, and we used to blame media for that. And but one thing was for sure, that some journalists, a huge group, I would say, not small, huge group, had a lot of credibility. Especially the op-ed pages used to have a lot of
Yeah.
credibility.
yeah, yeah.
People believed what they wrote, and not just believed because they were celebrities. That people believed, not that they were star journalists. They believed because with experience they realized that these people speak truth and they are not sold out to anyone. आप ये देखिए डीवी, मैं आपको एक छोटा एग्जांपल और देता हूँ कि in movies are the best test of
The
how things
times.
of the times. If you see in your generation, up to my generation which is born before 2000 or has experienced cinema before or understood cinema nuances before 2000, would know that journalists were always shown as poor people or lower middle class. They would take a bicycle in the heat in 50 degrees temperature. Even in Rajasthan they are going chasing the truth. Then the bad guys would beat them up, break their legs, break their cycle, takes everything away, but they won't lose their fight to seek truth. Then you see movies post 2000. If somebody is a journalist, he's living in a posh house, he's driving fancy cars, he goes to pubs and then he dances with the, even if he's a hero or heroine, doesn't matter. These people are very different from the journalists which existed in cinema in 80s, which means it got normalized. People understood that yes, journalists are corrupt like everybody else. In fact, they are more corrupt than corrupt people. And today's generation believes that whatever corruption, the evil of the societies exists, it exists because of journalism. Journalism is screwing up the world, is destroying the world, is destroying human psychology. Is it true what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you have touched upon the favorite topic of mine, not favorite, I mean, a topic that worries me. I wish it was not my favorite, but it annoys me now. I'll tell you the difference as I experienced it, Vivek. I'd like to trace back to my younger days. My younger days is 1960s. 1962 Chinese-India War was when I was a Marine cadet training in Bombay. I used to follow the Times of India. It used to be a big newspaper put on a college hostel desk, and that was the only copy. And I used to read there. And N.J. Nanpuria used to be writing. And Gandhi, Nehru, despite anyone, despite the revisionism he suffers today, and rightly so, he was a beloved of all Indians. I used to love him too. I now know his lapses, and history it doesn't forgive you, and you've got to suffer it. But the news, the Chinese invasion happened, but the country backed Nehru. I think it's wrongly, looking back. Everyone said that he was stabbed in the back. No one talked as much about the Chinese evil, but that is the kind of times that I was. What used to happen in my time that annoyed me, a little later, another 10 years later, you know Lal Bahadur Shastri's time, the man who put the food back on our table, he was the person who did it. But till he came, starvation was a normal. And I remember coming back from the sea, and they say Monday is a no rice day. Monday or Thursday, I forget. No rice day. There has to be labeled. I don't think any of the listeners who are watching me will believe this. There was a riceless evening, and the slogan was sacrifice rice in the evening for the nation. And people did it because Lal Bahadur said it. The thing is, the newspapers that I was annoyed with, they only did not give prominence to good news. They did report it. There used to be 2, 3 snippets in the inner pages and somewhere buried there. And the front pages used to be enough to make you depressed. But it is nowhere as terrible as it is today. You trace the course of movies, how they have progressed and regressed to what they are now. Let me tell you, as the media, as I seen it, and as I see it now, like I said, in my time, which annoyed me enough to go on the journeys and write these stories, nobody, they suppressed the good news, put it inside, they didn't think it was important. But they didn't go out of the way to pick on bad news to promote. That's a big difference I want everyone to understand. As we went on, a little later, a new phenomenon called page 3 started happening. When page 3 started happening, what happened was you could, I think so. I never been, I've known a few people who have been in the page 3, but I don't know whether they did it or not. You actually paid to be in page 3. So whether it's a paid third page or page 3, whichever would suit you. But I'm trying to look at that as a pivot of journalism. It took a turn that you would do anything for money. And then they would publish a whole page in praise of a business or something. And then a law came, I think a law or an order came that when you put it, then you got to write it as an adversarial page. They used to slip it in. So you could, industrialists could buy, or a cinema star could buy and buy space. It's not advertisement, mind you. This looks like editorial, it's content, but it is paid for. So from there, once journalism and its proprietors, mind you, many of the journalists became proprietors as well. At least they began to own their media companies, and their fall began to start there. So once you chase the money for the kind of content that you'll produce, it's one step to total corruption that we see now. What annoys me now, it began as paid news, whether it's paid by the politician or the industry or a film star or a celebrity. And then you surrendered yourself so much. I remember this man, A. Raja, I think, this man who went to jail, the 2G corruption. He was serially interviewed in a South Indian newspaper of great prominence. It called itself the nationalist paper from Chennai. It gave him such time, never inquired about him finally. So this uncritical journalism has led to where it is today. And today, you create fake news. Previously, bad news was promoted and good news was ignored. Today, you actually create until you found out. You see, if it has a run of 2 or 3 days or 2 or 3 television days cycle, news cycle, your job is done. You can pack up. Most people will walk away with a lie. Like they said, lie has traveled thrice around the world before truth can even get up and find out. It can't catch up. So they have understood that. They keep talking about Nazism, fascism, and all that. This is a Goebbelsian kind of approach. And all these people who are finger pointing and talking about fascism are fascists in doing this. Let me be open about it. And then it came how to make the fake news last longer. That became the orchestrated news of today. So they call it toolkit, but I would say it's a synchronized. Some unknown conscience ringing billionaire sits there and throws some billions, and hundreds of little fellows come and pick up what he threw on the floor, and they run around and do his megalomaniacal dream. He wants to realize a particular kind of dream. He wants to change the whole world, and he pays the minions and get them over, and the dog whistle blows, and they all line up, and they create the narrative. And the narrative is, you see, you got to understand the narrative because before you defeat it. But the narrative is so well constructed, it'll take you a while to defeat it, and it gets defeated. And this is the game that's going on. I don't know what to call them. I don't know the participants who indulge in this. I'm not even talking about be patriotic or love India or don't be so unfair to Hindus. I'm not even saying that. How do you live with yourself? What kind of a human life is it? This is the big change. If Good News India was a reaction to that rather innocent way of burying the good news to the inner pages, you can well imagine my anger today as to what's going on. I'm not talking about any politician or this. I think it's wrong, which either side of the aisle does it, whether the right or the left. I don't care. But you've got to be honest about the truth. So that's why I say, I don't know much. I'm not a well-educated person in our own culture. I'm a Hindu. I'm a proud Hindu now. I did not know I was a Hindu until I was 70. I became a Hindu because the rubbishing Hinduism started getting by all these chaps who run around calling themselves journalists and media celebrities. And then I said, come on, I'm a Hindu.
I never ever identified as, I didn't feel the need to tell anybody I was a Hindu earlier. So I was sensitive about Hindu, this thing. But in last 7, 8, 10 years, I've been
Absolutely.
forced to assert myself as a Hindu,
Same
and
here.
I think it is. I'll tell you what where the problem lies. Let's dissect it together. It's not that I've thought about it or I have any theories. I'm just off the cuff. I'm going to think about it. Let's see. I have a feeling when you said that these people manufacture bad news. Okay, so this is because what has happened is now, though this knowledge was always there in advertising, we used to use it. It's called fear
Yeah.
psychosis. In
Yeah.
advertising, we used to use. In fact, there is a campaign of Onida, if you remember, neighbors envy, owners pride, and there is a guy like a devil with teeth, and Dracula or something. He's become, and so this is based on fear psychosis. Uh, so what I'm saying is the negative advertising when it started in the world, we knew that you have to spend lesser money, lesser time to sell something which creates fear in people's mind. Because negativity. So I'm just sharing one part of research with you. So there is anthropological researches and in communication mass media when they teach you informally in colleges, then they teach you this theory also that our DNA, okay, memorizes the most important things for us. So it's just like a manual of our evolution. And because we have to survive in the most unpredictable universe or the environment, I would say universe because asteroids also come and sun, tomorrow if sun doesn't come, then what? So our mind, our DNA has memory of fear all the times. Mind forgets all the good things which have happened to you, which has made you comfortable. You won't remember that, yes, you were in an air conditioned atmosphere. But if you are thrown into a scorching heat for 2 hours and you are thirsty and you have nothing to eat, you remember it all your life. The reason you remember it all your life, because tomorrow if this happens, you know how to survive. So these are very survival consciousness kind of an understanding of fear. And that's where all these, when social media companies started, they made these labs. There are two kinds of labs there in Silicon Valley. One is dopamine labs, and the second one is this psychographics and behavioral labs. So dopamine, you have understood how to get you addicted to social media. They're proper. In fact, there's a company called Dopamine Labs Incorporated. So Facebook, Twitter, and all these people send it to them. That how do we get people addicted to us and they increase the usage? And what happens? Dopamine. Then slowly you get used to that kind of triggering of that kind of stimuli. Then you want more dosage of drug. So then they go back to dopamine lab and they say, okay, now tell us new tricks. So they send new tricks. And these people work in collaboration with all these research labs which work in consumer behavior. And these people keep feeding them that the trends, and you see trends, boycott this, ban this, kill this, do this, destroy that person. Those trends work more. You write abusive language, you write aggressive language, you use harsh words, you will definitely have more reach than if you say something which is good for the world. So they realize that good doesn't sell, and they are not here for ethics and morality, and they are not society builders or nation builders. They are not civilizational people. They're just selling their products, which has not even any factory, nothing, just people sitting on computer coding and creating algorithms. So this algorithm now has become smarter than human mind, and the algorithm itself has picked up human consciousness, which basically works out of fear, and they are just following that. So who's manufacturing bad news today? I think there are two kinds of people who are building it. One, people who have understood the game of algorithms. So they have understood negativity sells. Okay. And then who are the people who own this? Then politicians realize that yes, we can use it to our advantage. Okay. Now this money is being pumped into today. Today, if you give say 1 or 2 lakh rupees, you can get yourself trended throughout the day on Twitter. It's just a money game. So I can change the algorithm, what I want to hide, what I want to portray. Second thing that these people have realized is that people, and which is a research and which is a totally peer reviewed, most authentic research in the world. which says, you can just Google it after we finish it. It says that humans all over the world, every single human being, almost, people don't care about logic. People don't care about facts. People only make emotional decisions. Very rarely people make logical and factual decisions. Very often you buy a property because some of your friends are saying yes, they trust this seller. You know, so you people generally make emotional decisions about things. That's why combination of this understanding of algorithm people, it is now taken over by politicians, criminals, terrorists, separatists, and marketing companies. So common citizen, common person, just I'm finishing concluding it. So the R.K. Lakshman's common man suddenly is out of cinema. In no film you will find a common man's story. In news, there is no common man's news. They don't cover any city other than one imaginary La La land of Latvians. They don't cover anything else. From social media, the common man is out. Nobody talks about common things. Everybody is talking about changing humanity. And that's why everybody is conflicting with bad news. Because good news, human mind won't remember, so they won't make any money out of that. That is the problem.
Uh,
I'm just thinking loudly. What are
yeah.
your views?
Yeah, I have. I think we have discussed the bad news creation well enough. I think we have surveyed it. I think it's a worldwide conglomerate that's working towards a kind of a dream of its own. I don't know what it wants. I would tell all my readers and even you, Vivek, if you've not seen it, go to the YouTube and look for the what is uh, cultural Marxism. That's the name of the video. And after main Marxism failed, they invented cultural Marxism. Cultural Marxism thrives on keeping on creating dissatisfaction and slicing issues so that in every issue you find an oppressor and an oppressed. So this is the requirement. Almost everything they could slice. A book, there's a printing ink. I'm just making this up. There's the oppressor and oppressed even in a book. To give an example, the ink maker is evil. He might have used some chemicals, so he's the oppressor, and it transfers to us, affects our health. We are the oppressed. So a book reader will be made to feel guilty. I'm giving an exaggerated example. So this industry of creating constant binary of oppressor and oppressed. Please watch that. And that is being enacted. That video is, I wrote an article around that video, but go and read that article. What is cultural Marxism? And that is the world disease. The richest country in the world is afflicted by it, and it's not COVID, it's cultural Marxism. American universities and the westernized universities, they are afflicted by it. But you know the cultures that have survived? I would say, although I have my opinion about China, I'm not very fond of it now. But I used to sail from around Hong Kong for 4 years. I sailed with Chinese. Chinese and the Russians, I admire. They stayed close to their roots, has not
Yeah.
shaken them. Russia doesn't have a population as much as China has, but they never ceased. They are lucky because they are a homogeneous population. Non-homogeneity never bothered India. We have been a non-homogeneous people with a variety of food and language and cuisine and geographies and ways of worship and temple and weather and everything. But we were also coherent together. We have unfortunately been afflicted by two cultural invasions in the name of Islam and in terms of what, say, Sai Deepak, I'm reading his book, is talking about the colonial deliverers of a new way of thinking, and that changed it. I know a Sanskrit scholar who said that he chastises the British rule more than the Islamic rule, which is not to
Yeah.
say that the Islamic rule was any better. They said they left your culture alone. They went around converting you, they destroyed your temple, but then they didn't come in to make you feel guilty about your Hinduism. If you paid your tax, you got on. I'm just simplifying it, I suppose. They are no angels.
Yeah.
But there are Indians who still today, these are the people that I discovered in my travels. You lift the rock, there are many Indians around. You think it's a barren, rocky surface of a mountain, but there's life going on. You have no idea of incomes and lives and livelihoods are put together, how love is shared. They're all suffering, yes. And they get confused. The people they work for in the garden or in the kitchen or in the houses, the fellow Indians, the rich ones, they live entirely differently, in another layer. I do not think we realize how we are being seen. We want to be seen in a particular way by people from overseas. We are not quite aware of how we are being seen by the people who work for us. There's a huge difference. Anyway, why this has happened? The cultural disconnect, which is no fault of India. We were the culturally most connected people to which Russia and China was attracted. They built themselves on our cultural cohesion. We had the connection between, the other day I read somewhere a snippet of a news. They just discovered there's a small group, community of Indians who were settled in the Volga centuries ago.
Acha.
There was a movement between India and China and Tibet and Russia. So this part of Asia was a cultural whole. Then weak drifted and geopolitics took them away. But the people who are most lost in the world is the Western world today. The younger generation is getting alienated. That's a problem. Let me tell you what I think should be the solution. I think it's a very difficult disease to cure. I went through the disease and I think I have cured myself. After writing all those stories, I found that there was one kind of a story that I began to love writing it. You might have noticed it when you read the book. It's all about nature, restoration, tree planting, and water conservation, and loving the soil. I found more and more people are finding that peace in that.
Yeah.
And many years later, I found out there's a system called the dacha system in Russia. I don't know if you know that. Even during the Tsar's time and continues now, if any Russian wanted a piece of land, the state is obliged to give it to him. It's up to 3 acres. There they build their weekend dachas and they go away and spend the time. Russians' addiction to dachas, they go and do the hot shower, what are they called, sauna, and they all grow food. They raise animals for the table. They grow the food. I did not know until the other day, something like 60 or 70% of all the food on the Russian table is grown by individuals who are part-timers. And they do it because they're close to the Russian soil. And the Chinese, I heard, before Mao came along, I think it continues now, the public toilets in China used to be auctioned. They used to bid. The public toilet clearing was bid for and owned because the Chinese farmer used to take it and put it in the soil and push it in. This is called rootedness, and they did not have a scavenger problem because they accepted it. We lost our way because there are many stories as to where the scavenger thing started in India. I won't go down that road. I'm talking about China and Russia. I hope they still have this connection with the rural part. We are losing it, but we are not lost it. If you go about 100 kilometers out of any big city, you will find rural communities in harmony with the nature, and there's a certain contentment. And if there's a scale for the size and the brilliance of the smile, they will win all the time. The smiles are so, my God, it blows me every time. Every answer is given with a smile. I think they have the solution, Vivek. They don't hear the bad news.
I
The bad
agree with
news.
you.
Yeah. That's
I
why.
agree with you.
Yeah, I just say, in each person, this is my own discovery, and I put it my way. In each person, there's a producer and the consumer. There are two people. Our ancestors, they were together. There was no separation. Now we are separated. To the extent that the distance between the producer and the consumer grows, the unhappiness increases. I think take a pot, put a flower, and see it blossom, and look at yourself in the mirror for the smile you have when you watch it. Grow that 5 okras or the bendis, and you will say, it's my okra, just taste it. The pride of connection, we have lost that. If someone is feeling alienated about India, I say, save some rainwater, help somebody doing it, or grow something, or at least support a person who is growing it without poisoning the soil and misusing the water. By the word organic is misused, I won't use it. I would say sensitive agriculture. Buy it from them, support him so that he produces it. At some time or the other, if you feel depressed, just drop 2 layers down in India. India is a country of 100 layers. If you drop down to the 70s, you will go to the time of even Mahabharata. Some parts of India are still alive. We are very lucky people. Just drop 2 or 3 layers down, and you will find happiness and contentment. And then you will be able to describe the people who badmouth India and want to destroy its culture are the enemies. You will know that. And my Twitter byline says, I realized I was a Hindu when I was 70, thanks to the intellectual phonies and secular humbugs. And you came and invented a better word for them. Thank you. Urban Naxals is the phrase. I didn't have that phrase, but I put that in. These are the people, I at least hope they have the courtesy to import their salt. I hope they don't eat the salt of India.
The reason I called them urban naxals was because what has happened is that India lives in villages, small towns, but the whole narrative, the fight of narrative is urban. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
they're taking it away.
yeah, when we talk about culture, whatever we see in urban areas, we think this is Indian culture. And let me just share this with you. In 2019, 2018 and 18, Pallavi and I, my wife, we were sitting, and one day Pallavi said, why there is so much of negative news? It seems that everything in this country is wrong. The rich people are bad, middle class is bad, middle class is corrupt, poor people are lazy, there's no employment, there's nothing, nature is dying. What are we doing? I mean, so she said there must be something good also happening. That's why we have survived for thousands of years. And even now we are surviving, changing governments, doing things. There must be something good. So we got involved in that. And out of that came a web series called Bharat Ki Baat. And we then traveled all across India in smaller places, villages. And we chased people like your book. That's why I relate with this book so much. In fact, we have interviewed some people from this book also. So we traveled all over the country, Northeast, Kashmir, Kerala, wherever in the country. We went there and we spoke to these people who have achieved things despite the system, without anybody's help, and made a difference all over. So I agree with you because in my experience, we have seen when the moment you go out of the greed economy, it's not that people are not ambitious in villages or small towns, they don't want to become something or don't want to earn money. I'm saying greed economy, which is acquiring everything because of greed, not because of the need.
Yeah.
That's where this producer consumer gap comes in, because then you just want to consume all the times, and you have nothing to give in return to that. So we
The
realize
trick is to, yeah, the trick is to close the gap, whichever
yeah,
way you want. Even an inch increases your happiness. 2 inches,
yeah,
even more. If you completely
yeah.
become one, you become. I say, I just
And
want to add this. Yeah, go on, Vivek.
so, and not just the two things I realized. One thing is that as you go down in the hierarchy of urbanization, okay, you meet happier people, more content people, because they're not comparing themselves with anything. A boy or girl sitting in Bombay must be comparing himself with the boy sitting in New York or London and must be feeling frustrated. Somebody who's on Instagram puts his selfie and finds somebody else who's got more likes, you feel frustrated because you are comparing all the times. Okay, on Twitter, people are comparing your follower numbers, and in life, you are comparing yourself who has got better house. But as you go down the hierarchy of greed or urbanization, you will find that you find two things. One, more culture in abundance. You find more signs of culture, the manifestation of culture in very beautiful ways that you find. And the second thing, that people are simpler, not as complex as urban people, and they are more satisfied with their society and country. Second thing, which I
Yeah.
agree with you 100% with my own experience, it's not theoretical thing, is that all these people who are involved in environment or doing something, people are planting trees. Like we went to Rajasthan, and his daughter had died, so in deserts, then he committed himself to planting trees. And whenever there is a child is born, whenever there's a daughter who's born, he plants some 10 trees or something, and all trees are after girls' names, And now that's such a wonderful forest, beautiful
Yeah.
place. And I found all the young girls who were there. We met hundreds of girls there. All of them were so content, so beautiful. There was a different kind of beauty and energy and vibes. You feel the aura of people. So, which is more inclusive, more humble, like river. Whereas I find all these people who talk about environment, all these intellectual urban naxals, in cities who talk about environment, I like dead ponds. The same
Yeah.
all the times you are smelling the same water, nothing is flowing. Third thing which I agree with you, and that's based again on research and experience, is that the biggest villain in this world is communist thinking, Marxism, which you are calling. And that's why I call them urban naxals, because they are enemy centric, they are villain centric, therefore they are negativity centric. In their theory, there has to be a villain. There has
Yeah.
to be a villain, you know, and that villain is always the other person, not amongst them. There cannot be a villain in Marxist communist system. So therefore, Indian communists have made India their villain. So middle class is their villain, rich people are, and now post 2014, Hindus are their villains. That is the
Yeah.
problem. That is what intellectual terrorism is all about. They are fighting to portray India as Ravan. And now the young people who got empowered after 2014, now these people are bouncing back and they want to project India as a hero. This is where the fight is. But we are so huge in numbers and they are so small in numbers. Despite that, they are feeding us every day with poisonous bad news. The new generations are growing up on this poisonous bad news. What do you think about the future? Where do we go from here? What are the one or two things which our government or people have to
Yeah.
do to convert it into
I,
bad news to good news?
you got it right. That worked for me. You see, I wrote Good News India stories for 6 years. At the end of it, I asked myself, well, this is lovely. I found all these people. So what do I do? Spend the rest of my time finding more and more such people like that? Yeah, I said, these are my mentors. These are my teachers. They taught me something. So I stopped it at one point. 200 good stories doesn't make it the best story. Even the 20 stories should be enough for the person who's ready to be changed and inspired. So I stopped all that and I took 20 acres of absolutely barren land. And I did the best thing I have ever done in my life, in my long life, only about 10 years ago, 12 years ago. I dug enough water bodies so that I save 4 million liters of water every year and charge it into the ground. I'm a rainwater harvesting freak now. I just love rainwater harvesting, and I have planted a native forest in about 5.5 acres. Mind you, these are the things I need not be doing. Does not give me any money. I did not plant it for it to be a real estate because I am looking for people to give it to. There's a school running on that place. But this has given me the greatest satisfaction. And when I asked myself why this happened, it's all the heroes in Good News India who sought their solace and comfort are the beautiful Hindi word, I hope I am using it properly, the samadhan, I think they call it. Uh,
Samadhan.
yeah, samadhan, I like that word. They found that samadhan in growing rice, working in the countryside, helping people, and doing like that. So that came to me much later after much struggle. If young people are listening, this is what I would tell them. Participate in weekend farming, grow food in your balcony, or support a farmer who's growing things, and be careful about the water you use. You know, there's two kinds of water, Vivek. I hope I'm not aggrandizing the time. Let me just leave this nugget so that people understand. There are two kinds of water. There is fossil water, which is the property, the wealth that our ancestors left. The water takes so many hundred years to percolate down, and it goes beyond the reach of the pumps, at least of 50 years ago. It's fossil water. That's the storage, that's the wealth. And then there's the groundwater. Groundwater can be found up to 100 feet. Although it's not ground, it's the water that you save that flowing in the ground or goes in, and it can be pumped with water. So there are two kinds of water, fossil water and groundwater. Until about 50 years ago, India never touched the fossil water. We have been, some say 5,000, for example, let me say 5,000 years, some humans have lived in this land. Who they were, let's not get into that. They never touched the deposit. They left that fixed deposit for us. They always worked on the surface water because pumping water was getting harder and harder. They had to do that work for it. So they did beautiful, sustainable agriculture. And then the electric pumps came. We started going 100 feet, 200 feet, now 1,000 feet. And my heart broke. I seen it all in one lifetime. In UP, for the first time, we are beginning to dip into the fossil water. That's our treasure. If there's any family jewel, that's the family jewel. So what's the answer to that? You don't worry about it. You dig a pond and create fossil water. Don't, if you harvest 2,000 liters, don't take more than 150 liters. Rest of it has nowhere to go except to the ground. That's what you leave for the country. And then the trees will come, birds will bring the trees. If you have this approach, environmental approach, and if I wish the policymakers focused on this a little more and exposed children to this kind of a thing, I think India will rediscover its culture. Indian culture is nothing but environmentalism. Our biggest worship, at least what I worship, is the Panchamahabhuta, the 5 elements. So if you take away all the itihasas, all the shastras and all the gods, Panchamahabhuta will remain. And that will be enough Hinduism for me. And that no other religion can match. No other religion has an environmental basis as Hinduism does. That's why I'm a Hindu. Not because I believe in all the so many other things. I do. I marvel at it. I marvel at the thinking. The Panchamahabhuta is the essence of Hinduism. And there is a solution left behind by our ancestors. You worship the 5 elements, and then you do something about preserving the elements, and you would have contributed to the culture, to your own peace, and to the peace of the community. I'm sorry I digress in all sorts of ways, but this way, I think when you have the Google map of while you're driving, and suddenly you're lost, and there's a recenter button. And when you recenter, your vehicle comes into the center. We all must press the recenter button, reset ourselves, and then come back into this. And then we'll be walking towards peace. Many people are walking towards peace, and most people don't know.
Super. So DV is wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean, after this, there's nothing left to be said.
Oh, no.
Because this is the goodest possible thing you can hear. I think you are right. We need to reset. We need to, but the problem is, I don't know if it is going to happen in recent times. It's going to take a lot of time. But then,
it's happening.
Yeah.
It's happening by small trickles.
It will happen, and then. I think today the responsibility is on us to chase good news, good things, good ideas, creative ideas, and it happens when you listen to people who have experience, people who have wisdom, like DV. Read his book, please. And this is a wonderful book by Bloomsbury. And there is a friend of ours, Dimple, who has been she has
driving force,
spiritual energy everywhere. She's a wonderful person. She actually forced DV to write this book. So wonderful, great talking to you, DV. And I think what you have spoken in the end, that is the best answer. Ultimately, is the synergy and the oneness of Prakriti and Purush, which is going to take this world forward. All the goodness lies over there. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, Vivek. And they always caution saying, don't go to an old man and ask him to talk to you. He will never stop. So
thank you
for having me.
On and on. No. So you are always a delight here. You're always a delight.
You're my hero. You're my hero. So I enjoy talking to you. And,
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, friends. So this was again a wonderful conversation. I again want to make an appeal to you that we do all these things. It requires a lot of time, efforts, research, and We do this so that the younger generations get enlightened and we are able to share knowledge with them, complex research into simple language. So if you want, you can financially contribute by going to iambuddha.net donate. You can read in the description. Please go there, make your financial contribution, and keep this light of Indic Renaissance alive. Because yes, we are doing it, but sharing it with people is also your duty. This is a new channel, VRATV. Please share it with people, make it popular, because it's your channel. I'm just the mediator. Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are. Have a great weekend.